your answer should be relevant to my question.
I was
Okay.
asking you to
Otherwise,
explain.
okay, listen, you keep on over talking. Listen. Do you want to continue talking with me? Yes or no?
Sure.
Okay, good. Well, I'm a very straightforward person in these servers. Okay. And if somebody is just going to bullshit me and keep on over talking me and be disingenuous and not answer even simple questions that I put to them that are non-loaded, okay, then the conversation's over, which means you're just being an obstructionist. Now, it's a simple question. If you don't know the answer, that's fine. It doesn't mean you're stupid, all right? It just means you don't know. Do you understand the ramifications of not affirming the law of non-contradiction?
I asked you to please explain to me clearly what you mean by the law of non-contradiction.
Okay, so you don't have an answer. I'll try one more time. If you give me an evasive response, I will just move on to speaking to other people in the room. Now, I'll ask the question again. You're over talking me, which is a sign that you're being an obstructionist. So this is your last chance. Okay?
Darth, just finish explaining for him what the law of non-contradiction is.
Listen. I explained to him the law of non-contradiction is A cannot equal not A. Now,
yeah.
Here's the question. Now, if you don't know the answer, that's fine. I'll explain it to you. I just want to know if you understand or you don't. Do you understand what the ramifications are of not affirming the law of non-contradiction?
See, the thing is, from my perspective, we don't. There's a term in Buddhism called nishva bhav, which we don't uphold.
Is there anyone else who wants to talk to me in the room?
The self-identity of conceptual designation.
I'm gonna turn your volume down. I will be ignoring you from here on out.
Well, I'll just leave then.
I gave you several opportunities to, you're showing you're disingenuous.
Okay? Anyways, Darth, we were going into, for the past hour or so, into moral objectivism and making an argument for God's existence from there, and then we went to someone then just interjected and said, well, prove to me God exists, and then we went from there, basically.
Let me just explain to you. Let me just set you straight, Jay said. I would strongly recommend that you not publicly dialogue with this guy Shakti, because he's completely disingenuous, right? He's just an obstructionist in disagreeing with you, right? How do I know that? Because I asked this very simple question. Another reason why you should only talk with him privately is because he doesn't have the foggiest idea of what he's talking about, because he said he rejected the law of non-contradiction.
Right.
It is a total moronic and incoherency to reject and deny the law of non-contradiction, because when you reject it, therefore anything you affirm doesn't mean anything. You can't make any affirmations, and you can't make any denials. Therefore, it's meaningless for anyone to speak. It would be meaningless to say the sun will rise tomorrow. It would be meaningless to say I like chocolate ice cream. Okay? So either he understands the ramifications of denying the law of non-contradiction, or he doesn't know. Right? Now, if he doesn't know how the law of non-contradiction relates to making propositional claims, then he's not going to understand these other concepts either. But people like him, they're unwilling to learn even the basics, and then they just filibuster and they waste your time on these servers.
Right. How would you present the moral the moral argument from an objective values and duties basis?
Well, I would say that moral imperatives or ethics, as well as reason and logic, that if one doesn't start at square one, that the Christian God exists and is the necessary precondition for objective morality and for truth and for meaning and for reason, then they're just going to be in a sea of incoherency. Now, lest anybody think that that's being too harsh, the reason why they'll just be in a sea of just babbling is because every state of affairs that they assert, they're going to have to give an account of. Just like they want you to account for God, which would be the ultimacy of reality. If they're going to make assertions, then they're going to have to give an account of that. And if you ask them when they assert A, How do you account for that? In your non-Christian worldview, they'll say, well, B. Okay, how do you account for that? Well, C. Okay, how do you account for it? And you'll get down to all the way down to Y. And they'll say, well, how do you account for Y? And you'll say Z. And how do you account for Z? And you go, I don't know. So that means that all of their assertions, which build upon each other, depend on I don't know. Now, would anyone in these servers here take me seriously if I made any assertion and somebody said, how do you account for that? And I say, well, I account for it because ultimately I don't know. They would say, you're a fool, Darth Dawkins. Yet that is exactly the position that the skeptic is speaking from. Now, they do not know what the ultimacy of reality is. So when they make assertions of contingencies or contingent states of affairs, then you say, what does that ultimately depend upon? How do you account for that? And ultimately, it's going to come down to go, well, it's my axioms. Well, do you have an accounting for your axioms? Well, no, they wouldn't be axioms if I had an accounting for it. So, oh, okay, so your fundamental starting points, you don't have an accounting for. So it's based upon I don't know. That's the incoherency of the non-believer's worldview.
See, I think
what you have is a nuclear strength apologetic. They will argue with you over the Kalam and other lines of evidential reasonings all day long. The only way that they can deal with the presenting the Christian worldview is the only coherent worldview is to offer obstructionist tactics. It's the only thing that they can do. What are they going to do? Are they going to tell you what the ultimate nature of reality is? And if they tell you what the ultimate nature of reality is, say, well, how did you determine that? Well, is it going to be through their sense perception? Or is it going to be through a priori ideas in their thinking that because they think the ultimacy of reality is a certain way, that therefore it is? You see, you want to go for the, listen.
So why the book?
Say that again, George?
So why the book?
What?
Saying, so you're saying that there's no way for a rationalist to know for sure, and an epistemologist to know for sure that the universe is absolutely one way or another.
No, it's worse than that. It's even more cataclysmic than that. The unbeliever has no ultimate way to make metaphysically coherent and meaningful statements.
Well, I mean, I would argue,
George, let me just disabuse you of one idea. I'm not attacking their confidence level. Okay? The issue is, what is the ultimate basis for their truth claims and knowledge claims? Okay? It's not about their confidence. And you see, in the non-Christian worldview, there is no way to give an accounting for what the ultimacy of reality is. That's why Christians such as myself and other Christians assert that the Christian worldview is the only coherent worldview. And atheists sit back and they laugh, they chortle, they snort. They say, that's absurd. Well, then they can step forward and they can show me how the worldview that they speak from is ultimately coherent. How do they do that?
Have you read Lawrence Krauss's book, The Universe from Nothing? I'm just curious, EJ. Have you read his book?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said because your microphone's muffled.
Sorry. I'm just wondering if you read the book, A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss.
But I'm really glad that you brought that up because there's something that you should know about Lawrence Krauss.
Oh, did he write that? Oh my God, I hate
Krauss wrote it. Not only is it a stupid title, I've got a juicy morsel that will show you what a fake and a phony and a fraud Lawrence Krauss is. In addition to, he has a number of accusations of.
He's one of the worst.
Okay, crap. What I'm going to give you here is a bombshell. Okay. This isn't even talking about the accusations that have been made against him of sexual conduct. Now, I don't know that they're true, but there are a number of them. For all I know, they could be false. But this is a bombshell that for anybody who brings up Lawrence Krauss, any defender of Lawrence Krauss, all you have to bring up this piece of information and you will totally nuke their confidence in Lawrence Krauss, right? Lawrence Krauss was in a debate with William Lane Craig. Okay? Now, in the debate, I believe it was in one of the 3 debates in Australia. Okay? I might be mistaken about that. There's a video on this on YouTube, and there's also material on Craig's site about this. I apologize. I don't have the link at the moment. I didn't save it, but it's easy to find. Okay? All you have to do is look up William Lane Craig Krauss and lying. Okay? In the debate, they were discussing the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem. Okay? Has anybody heard of that?
Yes, I watched this debate.
Okay, good. Okay, so this may ring a bell. Okay, so the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem is a mathematical.
Talking about the email?
So say that again?
Are you
Yes.
referring to the email?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly what I'm heading toward.
Yeah.
Okay, this exposes Lawrence Krauss as a pathological liar. Now, the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem is a mathematical theorem that has worked out that for any model of the materialistic origin of the universe, where the expansion of the universe is greater than 0, for any model, that the universe would have to have a beginning. Even if you think that there's an expansion and a crunch, an expansion and a crunch, an expansion and a crunch, the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, and it's not an easy theorem to understand. I mean, I don't even understand it fully myself. But what I do understand is it shows that the universe had to have a beginning. Well, William Lane Craig uses the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem in an extremely powerful manner, and it has upset a number of materialists, such as Krauss. So Krauss sent an email to Alexander, I think it was Vilenkin, okay? And he posted the email during the debate as evidence that Craig didn't understand and misrepresented Alexander Vilenkin. And Craig stopped him and he says, I notice in your email there that there's an ellipsis, ... which means some part of your email has been edited out. What did you leave out of Alexander Vilenkin's email? And Krauss said a number of times in the videotape, oh, it was purely technical and it was extraneous to the email. And William Lane Craig very wisely said, I'd like to see what you've excised from this email, okay? Because Craig has had correspondence with Alexander Vilenkin. Alexander Vilenkin even wrote to Craig praising him for accurately representing the Bohr-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, where Krauss tried to use an email from Vilenkin to trash Craig, saying that he was not representing it. So Craig got a copy of the original email from Alexander Vilenkin, and the ellipsis actually showed the opposite. The part that Krauss had edited out when he showed it in the debate actually showed the opposite of what Krauss was trying to prove, which means Krauss deliberately and with malice intent removed information that contradicted the position that he was trying to present. So this shows that Krauss pathologically lying and misrepresenting the email from Alexander Vilenkin, and where he was trying to unsuccessfully accuse Craig of misrepresenting Vilenkin, when Vilenkin actually did state that Craig accurately represented his model. So Krauss is a proven liar.
Plus, I mean, that's not even to say that during that debate, I mean, it was on display of his lack of understanding of philosophy and theological principles, but also he was kind of just an asshole the entire debate too.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. He behaved worse than 14 and 15-year-olds during the debate. And yeah, you're absolutely right. He shows a colossal ignorance of even basic ideas that I find that atheists, even in cesspools like Krillism, have a more basic fundamental understanding of philosophy than Lawrence Krauss does. Okay?
Did you see the one with Peter Atkins, the Oxford chemist?
Oh, I'm trying to think.
He's the person
was that with Craig?
Yeah, he was the one who said that we came from nothing, therefore we are nothing.
Yeah, he humiliated Atkins.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to trash Craig, but I think that
he's very traditionalist. Yeah.
Right, and the arguments are very powerful. They can be very persuasive, but the point is there is a flaw in them, and that is the flaw that they acquiesce to the concept of autonomous reasoning. And in a biblical worldview, it is completely a contradiction to the Christian worldview that man has autonomous reasoning about anything. All of our reasoning is derivative. It is something that is a revelatory act of God. I don't mean that our reason is like a God, audibly speaking to us. What I'm saying is all of God's creative acts are revelatory. So my capacity to have a basic reliability of my cognitive apparatus is itself a creative act of God and is hence a revelatory act of God. But I don't mean that it's a special revelation. Let's say, for example, Paul writing the book of Romans.
Right.
Okay.
It's just, it must necessarily exist.
And so the problem with classical evidentialism is when they are debating against people like what Frank Turk does, and I have a lot of respect and admiration for Frank Turk. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he does a really good job. But in the debates, he's giving the skeptics a pass on their autonomous reasoning. But Turok has been recently going after those fundamental assumptions too, and I think he does in his book Stealing from God.
Yes.
So Turok is starting to use a combination now of presuppositionalism and evidentialism.
I think you're right, especially in his earlier debates versus Hitchens. Hitchens kind of always defaults to the problem of evil, and he kind of just granted. I think you're right. He kind of just entirely missed the point and just granted Hitchens a lot of assumptions that he shouldn't be making.
Did you watch the Q&A between Craig and Hitchens?
The Crossfire? Yeah.
I mean, William Lane Craig not only obliterated Christopher Hitchens.
Yes.
He literally, and this is without exaggeration, and anybody who doesn't believe this, it can't be disputed. He literally turned Christopher Hitchens with a very simple and fair question into a babbling fool. The white knight of atheist debaters was turned into a bubbling state of incoherence.
I think I know the question, but go ahead.
Yeah, the question was very simple. Do you have an argument for atheism?
Oh, right. Yeah, he stumbled on definitions.
And he started going, when the question was answered, he pushed that button on his chest to go into his Christopher Hitchens script list, okay? And he goes into his rhetorical flourishes, and William Lane Craig says, I need to know the answer to the question.
He's like taking like 45 seconds, right?
Right. And then finally, Christopher Hitchens, when Craig kept pressing him, I need to know an answer to this question. Christopher Hitchens started fumbling with his earpiece, and he literally says, I've become unwired.
Right.
Yes, I would say that. So.
Yeah.
And then he said this. He says, atheism is not the assertion that a certain position is true. It's the assertion that a certain other position is not true. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're asserting that theism is not true, then you are asserting that God does not exist.
Right.
I mean, that Q&A session exposed Christopher Hitchens for the fraud that he was.
Didn't he ask some stupid question? He always does this. He goes,
the only thing that he's good at.
If you were born in the Middle East or whatever, would you still be?
That's easy to refute. Okay.
Right.
That's easy to refute. That's just a standard atheist sloganism. Right. But the only thing I can say about Christopher Hitchens is he's very entertaining to listen because of his rhetorical ability. But if you look at it substantively, he is a terrible, and I mean this literally, not out of hatred, but he's a terrible debater. Now, you want to watch people who are good atheist debaters, you might want to turn to even Gordon Stein, who got eviscerated by Greg Bonson, or who's I think it's George Smith. Okay, but even they get creamed.
What do you think of Sean Carroll?
I think Sean Carroll is one of the better atheist debaters, but even still, Craig mops the floor with him, even from his evidential point of view. But the point is, I don't see, once I began to understand certain biblical themes, we should not be granting any ground to the atheists when they demand or insist a rational justification for the ultimate, for the God model of reality, which would be the ultimacy of reality. Then that criterion of belief is either arbitrary or not arbitrary. So if they insist on a rational justification for the God model of reality, then surely they must have a rational justification for the not God model of reality from whence they reason and speak. So when I ask atheists that I encounter on Discord, okay, so you want a rational justification for God? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to believe in blind faith. Good. What's your rational justification for the not God model of reality? And then what I get in response is, what? So, well, wait a minute. If we have two opposing models of reality, God, not God, if one requires rational justification for adoption, and when that rational justification is stipulated that it hasn't been presented, and you adopt the opposing antithetical model of reality, surely you must have rational justification for that.
Well, then rationality doesn't exist for them.
Well, let's put it this way: they cannot give a rational accounting for the necessary prerequisites of anything in their worldview for rationality. They think this is the height of absurdity to assert this, but it's easy to demonstrate. So when an atheist says, "Oh, sure, of course I can reason. I have a brain," say, "Oh, okay. Do brains require chemistry? Do brains require laws of nature and causality?" And then you get the deer in the headlights experience. What do you mean causality? Say, could you invoke your brain as a necessary precondition for your reason if there was no causality, if all events were discrete and were just spontaneously occurring? And then they go, what?
And that's not digging into do events have meaning?
More,
right? No events
more
have
deer
meaning.
in the headlights. Okay.
Right.
Now, some of the more sophisticated atheists that you run into on Discord servers, they don't have an answer either. But what they will do is they will employ semantical gymnastics or obstructionist tactics. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's subtle. They try to change the conversation.
Yes.
Okay? Because the issue here is this, is not a debate over merely belief in God or not believe in God. It's a debate over models of reality. And if one model of reality is demanded to have a justification, then so should the other one. And they don't have one, which shows you the incoherency of atheism and agnosticism.
There was one thing that Frank Turek said that I think is kind of touching on what you've been saying tonight, which is that you have to sit in God's lap in order to slap him, right?
You know where he got that from?
No, I don't.
He got that from Cornelius Van Til. Yep.
I think that was from his book. I was reading his book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist.
Yeah, don't listen. When the atheist claims that certain states of affairs exist, whatever they are, they're not doing so from a God model reality. So we shouldn't grant them anything. You see, the Bible says that the wisdom of the world is foolishness. The reason why it's foolishness is because all of their mental constructs about reality are ultimately without basis. And if somebody's assertions about reality are without basis, then it's foolishness. Okay?
Well, one of the problems with that is that there's certain presumptions you have to make, right, in order to come to conclusions about whether God exists or doesn't.
Can you please get closer to your microphone?
I'm sorry. I thought I was really close. Maybe I just need to speak up a little bit.
It's just kind of
I could hear you. It's just that I have an Apple headset. It picks up sound pretty good, but it's just the sound quality is not good.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. The thing about giving people certain conditions that they can use. Everyone has to start at two fundamental assumptions, right? That the laws of logic are valid and that their sense perceptions accurate.
How do you know that? Do I wait a minute. In the case that the God of the Bible exists, do I start with that assumption?
You have to, yeah.
Okay, really? So in other words, I don't start with certain innate capacities being made in the image of God?
Oh no, we're talking about reasoning. Like when you're
right, and being made in the image of God is the groundwork of reason. You see, the mistake that you're making is you're speaking from a not God model of reality. So,
but how could you come to the conclusion that you are made in God's image without using logic and sense perception?
Oh, I didn't say that we don't use that. God does use those certain faculties. But the issue is simply this. You are stipulating from your model of reality that our most foundational beliefs are assumptions, which means that they are not providentially ordained by God. If it's an assumption, like let's take, for example, that the human mental state, that there's causality and a uniformity of nature. Okay?
Okay.
Now, in the Christian worldview, not that you accept it, but in the Christian worldview, would those basic mental states be providentially ordained by God?
I don't want to speak from a worldview that I don't hold anymore, but yeah, I would assume so. And I think you would.
Okay, good. So therefore, by definition, from within the Christian worldview, they would not be assumptions. So if you state that those mental states where we hold to causality and the uniformity of nature are indeed only assumptions, that's a de facto declaration that the Christian worldview is false.
Okay.
Now, all I have to do to pull the rug out from under your position is ask you this simple question. Is it possible that the Christian God exists?
Okay. Let me respond to what you said, and then I'll get to your question. So first, the idea that you can only come to conclusions if you assume logic and your sense perception is accurate, right? And what I mean by that is the only way to understand natural and special revelation is through your sense perception and your reasoning. So you have to use those in order to get to those conclusions in the first place, right?
Yeah, well, but that doesn't mean using those faculties does not mean that they're assumptions.
Yes, they are, because in order to demonstrate.
Wrong. Hey, listen. Okay, listen. You're wrong. Okay, let me explain to you why. Okay, when Adam opened up his eyes in the biblical narrative, okay, he was made in the image of God. Okay, there were certain baseline cognitive functioning that was providentially endowed, that God endowed Adam and Eve with, and were passed on through biological reproduction. Okay, now if these basic mental states are a providential endowment, then by definition they're not assumptions. Now, listen carefully. Now, if they are indeed assumptions, then it follows necessarily that those basic mental states are not providential endowments by the God of the Bible, which means the God of the Bible, and necessarily entails the God of the Bible doesn't exist. Now, I will ask you a simple question that I'm waiting for an answer for. Is it possible that the Christian God exists?
I'm agnostic, so
okay, good. So the answer is yes, it's possible.
Sure. But anyway.
Okay, good. Well, now you've given me more. Listen, now you've
can I respond to your point?
Yeah, in a second. Now you've given me more rope to hang you with, because once you say that it is possible, listen carefully. Once you say that it is possible for the Christian God to exist, right? Then that means that your assertion that our basic mental state or assumptions are not necessarily true in an actual world where the Christian God exists.
Wait. Repeat that last statement, please.
Okay, let me illustrate it for you.
No. Just repeat the last statement.
It's better to give you an illustration.
No. I don't need an illustration.
No. Okay, let me do it my way. All right. Let's say there are three possible worlds: A, B, and C. In worldview A, the Christian God exists. In worldview B and C, God does not exist. Okay. So in all three worlds, we have Joe Christian come along and says the Christian God exists in virtue that God has revealed himself that he exists. Okay. So we have the same statement by Joe Christian in each of the three worlds. Now, from your worldview, okay, whenever that statement is made is an assumption. But that would only be true in worldview B and C, not in worldview A. So in order for your statement that those basic mental states are necessarily assumptions, it would have to mean the falsity of the Christian worldview. Because in the case of the non-falsity of Christian worldview, those basic mental states would not be assumptions.
Okay.
But now, since you have conceded that it is possible for the Christian God to exist, then you cannot assert in a necessary way that those basic mental states are only and necessarily assumptions.
Okay, let me explain why I think they're assumptions then. So
I don't think you understood what I just said.
Hold on 1 second. So when you come to the conclusion that God has revealed himself, you have to use your sense perception and you have to use your reason. You're repeating
yourself, dude. Yes, I already heard you.
You're not addressing the point.
So, no, I did address the point.
No, you didn't.
God in his providential endowment uses both spiritual and physical and natural occurrences.
And how do you know that without using your senses and logic?
Okay, how do we know that? By virtue that we know things through God's natural and special revelation. Natural revelation includes all of the physical parameters of existence, which would include sense perception. Okay, so in the Christian, you see, the problem in the disagreement here is this: you think you understand what I just said, but you don't. And the reason why I can assert you don't is because I can tell by your answer you don't understand. Now, if the statement that our basic states of mind are only assumptions can only be asserted if in no possible world the Christian God exists. But if there is a possible world where the Christian God exists, then those basic states of mind are not assumptions by definition within the Christian worldview.
Okay, that's great. So when I ask you how you come about knowing natural and special revelation, what faculties do you use to come to the conclusion that God has revealed himself?
The answer is by virtue of natural revelation and special revelation.
That's not
natural. Listen carefully, dude. Okay. Natural revelation includes all of the creative acts of God. Okay, which includes my spiritual and physical capacities as well. My sense perception is a product of God's natural revelation within the Christian worldview. Now, you can ultimately conclude that my sense perception is not a product of God's natural revelation. But what you are not free to reject is that within the Christian worldview, it is defined as such.
Okay. But nonetheless, if you do not use these faculties and you do not assume these faculties to be true, you cannot reach any conclusions whatsoever.
Hey, dude, I can tell by your response what I just said to you went completely over your head. Now,
yeah, I can say the same.
Very simply. Listen, very simply. Okay, very simply. Now, Jason, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm going to show you that how not to get bogged down. Okay, I got bogged down. I'm going to go for the jugular. Now, I'm going to ask you a very simple question, Val. Do you hold to the Christian worldview?
No.
Okay. Are you okay? Do the prerequisites of reason exist?
As far as I'm aware.
I'm asking for a yes, no, or I don't know. Do the preconditions and prerequisites for reason exist?
I just answered.
Okay, is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay, is causality and laws of nature prerequisites for reason?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Now, can you please give me a rational accounting that those preconditions of causality and laws of nature exist?
No, they're assumptions.
Okay, good. Therefore, everything you say is ultimately based upon assumptions.
Yeah, just like everybody, which is why I said.
No. Okay, no, dude, you just compounded your error. You're not. You see, this is the problem I run into all the time. You're not understanding the implications of even what you just said. Okay, now, when I said to you, therefore, everything you say is an assumption, your response to me was, yeah, just like everyone else's.
Yes.
That statement, listen carefully.
I'm listening.
That statement is a knowledge claim. But all your knowledge claims are assumptions. Why should I conform any of my thinking about reality, and why should I conform it to your assumptions?
Because there's no other way to come to conclusions.
Is that ultimately based upon an assumption?
I hope not.
Okay, you see, you're still not getting it. You see how obtuse they are, Jay Sut? Okay. Now, if everything ultimately,
well, you can't escape making absolute statements.
Right. What you're not understanding. Once you admit that the very foundation. Listen, once you admit that the very foundation of all of your knowledge claims are assumptions, to make a further knowledge claim, you too, or it's true for everyone else, that's just compounding one assumption with another assumption.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I think everybody has.
Well, good. Now, do you have a rational, ethical argument why I should conform my thinking to your assumptions?
Oh no, I don't. I'm not.
Oh, so there's no. Okay, good. So one more time, so we're clear here. Do you have a rational basis as to why I should conform my thinking to your knowledge claims that are ultimately assumptions?
I don't think anybody should conform to me just because.
Okay, wait a minute. One more time. Do you have a rational basis why I should conform my thinking to your assumptions?
You're asking based on the laws of logic?
Okay, one more time. Do you have a rational basis why I should conform my thinking to your assumptions?
It is the way.
Yes.
What is that rationalization then?
Because the only way that you can come to conclusions is through assumptions. And
okay, so are you giving? Wait a minute. Are you wait a minute? Is that a knowledge claim?
Yeah.
Is that wait, hold on a second. Listen, you keep on listen. You're like a little kid. Listen, you're like a little kid who picks up daddy's hammer and you hit yourself in the head and you keep on hitting yourself. You see, you just admitted. Listen, Val, listen to me. Because what happens with me, I get frustrated. Okay, I'm going to be blunt here, right? And it's for the purpose of actually helping you. But I actually get frustrated and I start to get angry when people are stuck on stupid, when they concede to a point and then they double and triple down on the point they conceded, that they can't make any meaningful statements. Now, if all your knowledge claims are assumptions, then everything you say are assumptions. So when I ask you, upon what rational basis I should conform my thinking to your assumptions, the only correct answer is to say, well, because I assume it. To make any other statement is still just a glorified assumption. You're not understanding the ramifications and implications of your own conceited worldview.
No. So when I say that you have to make
so you still don't get it. See, he doesn't throw in the towel.
Can I finish, please? Okay.
Yeah,
So
you're stuck on stupid.
When I say you have to make assumptions about your logic and reasoning and your sense perception, that applies to me too. So in
okay, wait a minute. Is that true?
Hold on.
Is that true?
In using logic, I am also assuming logic is valid. It's circular, and there's no other way for it to
everything. Listen, it's really simple. It's not complicated. Okay, is everything you say to me an assumption?
It's based on assumptions, yes.
No, that's right. Is everything you say a glorified assumption?
Everything I say is based on assumptions. I can't.
Okay, thank you. Wait a minute. Game over. You just hung yourself.
Okay. Well, I think that everybody.
Game over. Do you? Okay. Look. Can you imagine if you were a witness in a case, and that's how you testified? Do you think the jury would believe you about anything?
Don't really care. So
no, what I'm just showing
Your Honor,
you,
I assume he was a human being and not an alien from Zarlok's time.
That if all of your knowledge claims are assumptions, then they're not really knowledge claims, are they?
Okay. So, ZJ, you invoke epistemic circularity, right? That God is the ultimate authority, and the only thing that can basically prove the ultimate authority is the ultimate authority himself.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. That is no less the exact same thing I'm invoking for sense perception and logic.
No. Okay. Listen, dude. Listen to me. In all due respect, okay, I'm going to criticize you here.
Go for it.
But it's not for the purpose of trashing you. You are in over your head. You simply do not know what you're talking about. Okay, because an appeal to sense perception is not an appeal to one's ultimate authority.
Where does the definition of epistemic circularity have to deal with
epistemic circularity means that one's ultimate authority is verified by that ultimate authority. Now,
find a definition for
that. Listen, let me explain something to you. Okay, when you try to make a parallel between my appeal to the revelatory acts of God and you compare that to your sense perception, you're making a fundamental blunder that happens all the time on Discord. Sense perception is not the same as cognitive processing. Sense perception is just stimulation of nerves and things like that in your body. Okay, you're thinking of observation, where observation. Let me give you an example in terms of sense perception and phenomenon in science. Okay, from an empirical point of view, all observations in an empirical sense are inherently theory-related. Okay, there are no neutral or objective observations. You have sense perceptions, and then based upon your network and cluster of beliefs, you do a cognitive processing, and it is filtered through your web of beliefs, and then your mind spits out a conclusion. So sense perception, in and of itself, can't be referred to as an ultimate authority. Number two, you are presupposing that the sense perception operates in a basic, reliable way. Okay? You have no rational justification for it.
Okay,
now your ultimate authority, you see, I'm going to tell you something that you don't even know about yourself. Your ultimate authority is not your sense perception. Your ultimate authority is your reason.
Okay, yeah, and I used the laws of logic and reasoning.
Philosophy, in philosophy, okay, good. So how is your cognitive apparatus the ultimate authority?
Yeah, okay, so here's the question I've been trying to ask.
No, answer the freaking question, and then I'll answer your question. How is your reason the ultimate authority?
I reject the basis, the premise. Can I?
Okay. So your reason is not the ultimate authority.
Can I at least? Okay, let me finish, and then if you don't think what I said,
conversation's going to end. Listen to me. I deal with people who are chronically evasive. Okay. Now, if you don't answer the question, I will end the conversation.
Let me answer. What I'm saying is that the ultimate authority for your sense perception would be your sense perception. As in, you have to use your sense perception in order to demonstrate.
Listen. You are in over your head. You simply do not know what you are talking about.
Where are you
now, listen to me carefully. Listen, dude. You see, the reason why I'm so blunt, the reason why I'm just so straightforward about this, and some people think I'm being mean and cruel, I'm actually helping you, okay? Now, the reason why I'm so blunt about this is because people blather on and on and on about things that they aren't really familiar with. Now, one more time. Sense perception is not an ultimate authority.
Okay, can I ask my question now, finally? Okay, where are you getting the idea of ultimate authorities in the definition of epistemic circularity? Where does that originate from? Where are you getting that?
Where am I getting that? Well, how about we talk about the Munchausen's trilemma, where there are three legs to potential justification. The first leg would be circular in nature. Okay, so that would include, but would not be limited to, epistemic circularity. Okay, now one could have a justification for something that was epistemic circularity, or it could be non-epistemic circularity. So that would cover the first leg of the Munchausen's trilemma. Then you have an infinite regressive justification. Nobody opts for that. Okay. Then the third leg is what people try to opt for and then dress it up with philosophy-speak, and they call it axioms. Okay, or a priori beliefs, or properly basic beliefs. Okay? Now, the bottom line is, what you're not understanding is sense perception is not a reasoning faculty. Your mind is a reasoning faculty. You have sensory input, but then that sensory input has to be filtered. It has to be run through a cognitive process. Let me show you, let me give you a very brief illustration to show you why your notion of sense perception as an ultimate authority is absurd. Okay, here's why. I want you to imagine that you're visiting your brother in Los Angeles, California, and you're going to get a cheeseburger, and you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden you're walking past a bank, the bank doors burst open, bank robbers come out, police show up, and they start exchanging gunfire like in the movie Heat. Okay, you drop to the cement, to the ground, while bullets are ricocheting all over the place, and your heart is pounding a mile a minute, because within 2 seconds you entered into a bank robbery, and you could be shot to death. And you look up to see where your brother is, and you see him laughing, and he's laughing his ass off. Okay? Now, you come to the conclusion either your brother's insane or your brother's not insane. Okay? And your brother turns to you and he says, "Get up. This is a movie set." Okay? Now, you both had the same sensory data, but the difference between the two of you is you both had different web of beliefs. You had different cognitive filtering. So sensation, by definition, is not an ultimate authority. Number two, you don't even know that your basic sense perception entails a basic reliability. So how would sense perception be an ultimate authority? How would you account that sense perception has a basic reliability?
Okay. That's why I rejected to the premise of your question, because I coupled the two together. No, hold on, let me finish.
There's no answer to the question, dude.
Can I at least get my point out?
Okay, you're stuck on stupid.
No, you're just not listening. I'm trying to answer, and you just won't let me.
Just let him answer the question, Jesus.
So, what happened is I coupled both reasoning, our ability to reason, and our sense perception together. That's what I did, and that's why I rejected to the premise of your question.
Now you're changing your tune.
Which one is the
which is it? Is it your reason that's the ultimate authority? Because before, when I said what's your ultimate authority, you said sense perception.
Well, yeah, because I rejected the premise of your question, but you forced me to answer.
Okay, one more time. What is your ultimate authority?
Okay, for reasoning and perception, your brain has to process all these things. Yeah. So your brain is the one.
No, your reason is the ultimate authority. If it is not God,
sure. But that's why I was trying to get that.
If God and His revelation are not the ultimate authority, then something else is. Then it would be your reason.
Sure, and I was trying to get there, but you.
Okay, good. So explain to me. How is your reason ultimate authority? And by that, I mean, are your cognitive faculties, do they operate in a basic, reliable way?
Well, that's one of the things. We can only assume that they do.
Okay. Okay. So you don't know. Okay. So your ultimate authority is just simply an unjustifiable, unverifiable assumption.
It's epistemically circular, which is why I've been.
No. You're not, dude. It doesn't matter that you try to imitate a biblical presuppositional way. You can say that it's epistemically circular, but the point is this: is you can, just like a Muslim could appeal to epistemic circularity for their ultimate authority. The question is their appeal to their ultimate authority internally coherent? Now, when you claim that your ultimate authority is your reason, and then you turn around and you say to me, well, you assume that your basic cognitive apparatus operates in a basic, reliable way, then you're telling me that your ultimate authority is your assumptions.
Sure, if you want to say that.
Okay, good. Therefore, your ultimate authority are your arbitrary ideas.
Well, there's no way that you could actually say your reasoning is valid without using reasoning. So there's no way to get out of that.
Really? Wait a minute. Could I do so if God gave revelation?
Well, you have to use your reasoning to get to the God revelation part. So you still have to use that.
Right. But the point is, can God give revelation?
Yeah, and you talk about natural and special revelation, right?
Right. The point. No, what you're not understanding is this. Okay. In spite of the fact that you reject the God of the Bible and His revelatory acts as the ultimate authority that you speak from, you hang yourself because you are conceding it is an assumption. Now, on contrary to that, in contradistinction in the Christian worldview, all of our basic mental states are providentially ordained of God. So there are certain things that we know that are ordained of God that we can't be wrong about. Okay, so some of these basic mental states, by definition, are not assumptions.
Okay, so
they are okay. Listen. They are known. Listen. They are known not in virtue of assumption. They are known in virtue that they are providentially ordained and instilled into the basic cognition of man.
Okay, so what faculties do you think we cannot be wrong about ever?
We cannot be wrong about that there is one true God and a creator and sustainer of all things. We cannot be wrong that He has created an externally, physically real world that is not illusory. We cannot be wrong that He has ordained that there is causality in this material realm. We cannot be wrong that He has created a world that operates in an orderly and regular way. We cannot be wrong that He has communicated with various individuals in human history, starting with Adam and reaching its ultimate culmination in the person and work of Jesus Christ. We cannot be wrong. We cannot be wrong that God has spoken through us through his Son, especially through Jesus Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. Okay? We cannot be wrong about that.
Okay, I understand. So now the next thing would be, if we, how do we come to the conclusion that we cannot be wrong about this? Did I cut out?
Yeah, like examining it critically.
Yeah, listen. There's no we here. Okay, what we have here is a clash of worldviews.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then let me rephrase it. How do you come to the conclusion that you can't be wrong about this?
Okay. The reason why I can have this knowledge is the reason why I can have knowledge about anything in virtue of God's creative acts, his revelatory acts in natural revelation, and in his special revelation. Now, if you find that if you find that unacceptable, okay, then there cannot be any other answer than that, because any other answer than that would contradict the Christian worldview.
Okay, then let me just make this point, and then you can move on. So I don't want to bog down everybody. So you're right, I don't find that acceptable. And the reason I do not find that acceptable is precisely what I've been talking about. As
the reason, wait a minute. The reason why you don't find it acceptable is there a basis for reason in your worldview?
Can I finish my point, please? Okay, so the reason I do not find that acceptable is that the ways you get to those conclusions, right? And people have been wrong about this stuff all the time. People believe false gods all the time. The reason you come to these conclusions is because you've read the Bible, you've studied the Bible, you understand the Bible, and you have to use your faculties, your mental faculties, to get there. So I think that you have to assume your mental faculties are valid.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, listen.
But if we disagree, then we disagree.
Listen, all you're simply telling me is your interpretation of what I stipulate. But your interpretation is the product and derivative of just simply of assumptions, period. So all you're simply telling me is, I assume the moon has green cheese on the inside. That's why it's raining. Well, why? Well, because I don't know. That's the position you're in.
Okay. Well, like I said, that's the position.
Okay, so do you understand? Listen, do you understand? Every time I point out to you the epistemic quagmire that you're in, the response I get from you and all these other skeptics is, yeah, but, okay? Now, either you are actually in this epistemic quagmire as I have tried to stipulate, right? Or you're not. If you say, yeah, but, it's game over. Now, if you say, well, I'm not in that quagmire, then we can discuss it again. Now, I will ask you simply again, okay?
I'm done, Darth. I told you I had one more
point.
Well,
the point is this: is you keep on making knowledge statements. Now, do your knowledge statements have an ultimate path of justification?
I think he said he's done.
Yeah, because he's stuck on stupid. He wants to affirm on one hand that everything that he says is based upon assumptions, but then he wants to keep shooting his mouth off and make knowledge claims as though they were not glorified assumptions. Once he concedes that everything ultimately stems in his worldview from assumptions, then everything he says to me are assumptions. They're not actually knowledge.
By the way, Darth, I added you on as a friend on Discord.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you see, this is why I say it's stuck on stupid, because they keep on going, yeah, but. Once you say yeah or yes to the fact that their fundamental starting point is just simply arbitrary or assumptions, it's game over. How would how would they respond to me if every knowledge claim I made to them and say, well, I just assume it, I would assume it? They would just dismiss it.
Well, they assume that you assume it until they talk to you.
This is the problem you're in. The only coherent worldview is the Christian worldview. Now, if you tell me not so, then tell me what your worldview is. Now, tell me this, Val, okay? There's even a more deeper issue that I haven't touched on, okay? And the issue is simply this.
Darth,
Val, I'm helping you out. I'm helping you become a better thinker. You see, look, you're not understanding me. I'm gonna push through until I get my point across, and you can talk. Now, the deeper problem is this. In order for you to make these knowledge statements, these are contingent states of affairs. These contingencies are specific to and derivative to an ultimacy of reality. Now, I will ask you this one simple question, and I expect an honest answer and not filibustering. Now, Val, what is the ultimate nature of reality?
Darth, as I was trying to tell you, I'm doing something else right now, so I'm listening, too busy to respond. So, thank you. I told you I was
Do you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, no. He said he's too busy to respond.
He doesn't. Okay. Like Here's the problem. He doesn't know what the ultimate nature of reality, nor does anyone else who rejects the Christian worldview.
My issue, Darth.
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what the ultimate nature of reality is, therefore, their knowledge claims, which are statements of contingencies, are contingent and specific to I don't know. Do you see how foolish that is?
Right. Well, yeah, it's logically incoherent in a worldview, or just I don't even know how you have a conversation from there.
Well, this is why I say these people are stuck on stupid, because they'll say, yeah, but say, well, wait a minute. If your knowledge claims ultimately depend on the ultimacy of reality, and I say, what is the ultimacy of reality? And they say, well, I don't know. Then their knowledge claims are specific to and derivative of I don't know. This is, you see, what we have done here is we have shown the absurdity and the incoherence of the non-Christian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's game over, Jay Sut.
The issue I'm having on the opposite front of using kind of more classical evidential arguments is that before I get to, I'll start my argument, then they'll reject my premises, etc. Then I'll say, what evidence would be sufficient enough for you to believe in the existence of God? And they usually either say, I don't know, or they say, if God really wanted me to believe in him, he would show me some kind of evidence. Like they can't answer.
How do you know that? You should ask them, how do they know that? You see,
right.
listen, you need to keep one thing in mind. Everything that comes out of their mouth for the rationale for not believing in the God of the Bible is a psychological self-deception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's called suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. So when they tell you their reason for not believing, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe God? If the God of the Bible is your ultimate authority, you're either going to believe God or you're going to believe them. Okay?
I'm out of here.
If they tell you that they don't have evidentiary support for the existence of God, what they're saying is, I won't believe in God because there's not evidentiary support for the ultimacy of reality. You say, oh, okay, good. So evidence requires that it be specific to and derivative of the ultimacy of reality. So
right.
What is the ultimacy of reality that provides for the viability and meaningfulness of evidence? And they're they go, I don't know.
Well, they ask, when they do give me an answer, they ask for evidence. They ask for evidence that would pertain to a material
wait a minute.
being that exists in space and time.
Jason,
which is,
listen. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If you're in a situation where it's literally a life and death struggle,
yeah,
you're gonna use lethal means. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you're dealing with these people who are in absolute rebellion against God, you have to hold to that view if you hold to the Christian worldview. Okay. So what you need to do is stop playing patty cake with these people. This is to use the analogy of a life and death struggle. It's a life and death struggle, not a jujitsu class. Okay? So
Right.
what you need to do is and I'm not criticizing you. I'm just trying to help you in just a blunt manner. We need to stop playing patty cake with these people and go for the lethal throat cut. Okay, I'll use a very harsh illustration here. I don't mean this literally; it's figurative. We need to slash their philosophical throat so they pass out and fall out on the floor. Okay.
I mean, we deal with enough issues within Christian circles in and of itself, right?
Right. So the point is, when they open up their mouth and they say this and they say that, you say, okay, good. Since the God of the Bible doesn't account for this, what does? And then they ultimately have to concede that they don't know what it is. But then they'll turn around and say, well, you have the same problem. But you see, they're stuck on stupid because, wait a minute. If they say you have the same problem, that means you can't make knowledge claims then.
Right.
And if you can't make knowledge claims, then you can't say I have the same problem.
What they don't realize is that when man kills God, you ultimately kill yourself in the process.
Yeah, Cornelius Van Til said anti-theism presupposes theism. In other words, they have to unconsciously presuppose God in order to argue against God. Okay?
Right.
Now, don't pussyfoot around with these people. Okay? Don't grant them certain preconditions in reality that they depend on to make certain assertions when God says that only He provides that. God says He is the creator of all things. God says He produced causality. He produced the laws of nature. So when the atheist tells you that they can reason in virtue of their brain states, they're saying they can reason in virtue of laws of nature and causality without God. Okay, good. Tell me, okay, so tell me about this causality. What causality in your worldview? And what they will attempt to do is say, are you denying there's causality? Oh, no, I'm not denying there's causality. Causality is coherent and can be accounted for by God giving us sovereign and providential revelation. But since you reject that, you tell me how you account for causality. And the answer is they can't do it.
Well, right. What they don't realize is that you don't need to believe in God in order for these things to exist. But otherwise, if you don't,
is that
you're going
true?
to need to make excuses.
In the Christian worldview, they need God for everything they do. For example,
no. God needs to exist for this. But I'm saying
that's correct. That's what we're referring to. Like when I go in and brush my teeth, okay, I need God to exist even to be able to do that. Now they think, oh, no God needed. Say, oh, okay, good. So since God, being the ultimacy of reality, is not needed, then what is the ultimacy that provides you with these contingent states of affairs? And then we have the deer in the headlights. What? They want to sit there with their atheist sloganism, like there's no evidence for God, and their cliches. They're for the most part, relatively few atheists are sharp thinkers. Most of them are grotesquely sloppy in their reasoning.
There's a rare class of them who believe in God but just reject him.